Welcome to Stirring Up Talk with Gecko Hospitality, the podcast where hospitality experts meets real-world success. Hi, Brian. How are you?
I'm well. I hope you are.
Good. I wanted to say thank you for coming on Stirring Up Talk.
Thanks for having me, Morgan.
Before we get started, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So my name is Brian Blum. I am a franchisee and recruiter for Gecko Hospitality. I work in the restaurant division in Massachusetts, Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont.
Awesome. Great. Thanks for sharing. All right, let's jump into it.
Okay.
Can you walk me through your professional journey?
So yeah, I guess since I'm technically still involved in the restaurant industry, I started in the restaurant industry when I was 14 years old. At a restaurant called York Steakhouse in Natick, Massachusetts, bussing tables. Then went on and after they fired me because I was underage, I got another job with a mom and pop and washed dishes and did prep for a couple of years, and then went on and learned to cook and in a number of restaurants and kind of became a chef. And I was in the kitchen for about 9 years total before working my way out front and then eventually to a general manager and an area director. And then, gosh, when I was 39 years old, I think it was, I had two children, both under the age of 10, and it was time to try to spend more time with them. And so Joan, at the time, she was Joan Boscawen back then, I believe, said, "Hey, have you thought about recruiting?" Robert Kurzak's looking to franchise Gecko Hospitality. So I flew up to Chicago, met with Robert for a couple days. We talked about the franchise opportunities and I became a franchisee. And that was 21 and a half years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, long time.
Impressive. And how did you make that transition from being in the restaurant industry to kind of being more with your family?
So it was a challenge, I won't lie. I mean, I love the restaurant industry. I love the fast pace. I love interacting with people. I think, like most people in the restaurant industry, I'm a little ADD. So,
Yes.
being able to just run around and do 1,000 different things a day really worked with my personality. And then going to sitting at a computer and, making phone calls, now video calls, but back then it was phone calls, reading resumes. It was a little bit of a challenge just sitting at a desk all day, but recruiting allowed me to do the things that I wanted to do when I wasn't working. So I was able to really be more active with my family, have dinner with my family at night, breakfast in the morning. I was able to actually work out on a regular basis, normalize sleep schedule off on the weekends. I mean, that's pretty good, but the one thing with recruiting is it is work. And if you don't put in the same amount of time you did in the restaurant industry, you'll fail.
Right,
So
of course.
it's not hard in that, the dishwasher didn't call out sick and you're washing dishes till 3 in the morning, but it's not easy either. It's a relationship business and you build relationships with candidates and clients every day.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing. And I have a follow-up question. If you
Sure.
could go back and give yourself advice at the start of your career, what would it be?
When I'm 14 or when I started recruiting?
Mm, I would say when you're 14, that's when it kind of all started for you, right?
Yeah, don't do it. Just
Don't
kidding.
do it.
Wow. I don't know if I would change anything because everything I did led to who I am today. And
Right.
I like who I am today.
The
So
butterfly effect.
it is. So, if I change anything, maybe I don't meet my wife and have my children and I don't live the life I'm living today. You just never know, right?
Right, of course.
So put more money in my 401k, I guess, back in the day, maybe that would be the thing. But
Yeah.
no, I can't professionally. I don't know if I would have changed anything. I think the restaurant business is a great business. It's for anybody who wants to move up in their career and eventually, have a lot of success. You can do that, but it requires work, and I think it requires a bit of education and then a lot of hands-on work and learning. And one of the things I tell my candidates is if you're ever in a situation where you're no longer learning and no longer growing, then it's time to change companies that you're working for. But if the
That's
company
great
allows you to
advice.
continue to learn, if the company continues to allow you to grow, then you should stay.
Yeah, I agree with that. I love that. And why do you believe a modern detailed resume matters longer than one page?
Yeah, so, we live back when I started recruiting, resumes were faxed. right? And some would email, and it quickly transitioned from fax to email, but more than one page, it's eating up your fax toner and your paper, and it's just a little bit of a challenge. But now everything's on a computer. People apply online for jobs. And oftentimes, if you're applying into, say, a big company, well, that big company is using AI to screen your resume. And if you just have a simple resume, it doesn't see what it needs to see to move you to the interview. I like to look at detailed resumes. I like to know, not just that you worked at a company from X year to Y year, but like, what did you do there that made you successful? Share numbers, share success stories. Everyone likes a story. So that needs to be built into your resume. Look at a job description of what you're applying for, and then look at your resume. And does your resume tell the computer that's reviewing your resume, am I a fit?
Right.
As a recruiter, first of all, I'm not sending your resume through an AI tool. I'm sending it to an individual, usually human resource manager or area director or vice president, who's going to review your resume.
Okay.
So it's a little different. But when you're applying on your own, you may need a different resume for every job you apply to. And again,
Right.
and don't lie on your resume, but at the same time, really look at your resume and then look at the job description and ask yourself, have I done these things? If so, where? What were the results? And add that into your resume.
That's a great way of looking at it. Thank you. And looking at your own resume, how do you prioritize details versus brevity?
Well, I haven't written a resume in a long time.
If you had to.
If I had to. I think one of the best things you can do is sort of, and if you're in the world where you're working for companies, is always be updating your resume.
Always
So,
be updating.
at least like once a month, sit down and look at it. Hey, what did I do this month that I need to now add to my resume? Because you forget over time, right? So it's almost like a work diary, and then you can always trim it down a little bit in time, but you want to remember all your success stories.
It's a great way of putting it.
But details do matter, and being able to tell the story of, when I did this podcast with Brian Blum, the reason it was such a great podcast was.
Yes, that's true.
There you go.
What's been the toughest hiring decision you've made for your franchise?
So I've been doing this again for over 21 years. When I started with Gecko Hospitality, I had one franchise. I was looking to get another one, and I hired someone to be a recruiter with me. And he worked in my office with me, helped me get my first office, actually. And then just, teaching him how to be a recruiter, right? And then bringing on the second, and I knew him because he used to work for me. But then the second person that I brought on, I didn't really know. And he was successful at first, but over time, he was a chef, and he loved to talk to chefs. And he could get on the phone with a chef and talk to a chef for an hour. And then that chef candidate that he talked to for an hour wasn't the right fit for any of our clients. So he kind of wasted an hour. But he did that every day, all day. And so I think my biggest regret in hiring was really not a hiring decision, but when to let someone go. I think when to realize they're not the right fit for this business, and to say, you know what, it's time to go. And I recently, about a year and a half ago, made a similar decision. I hired a sous chef who was very fluent in Spanish to interview Hispanic sous chefs, because we really have a need for that, and place them with our clients. But he wasn't able to figure out the tools to be a successful recruiter. He just couldn't figure it out. And so what I learned from the first time was we parted ways pretty quick.
Wow. That must be a very hard decision to decide.
Well, it is. So recruiting is an interesting field in a way, because, the old term for recruiters is headhunters. And the reason we're called headhunters is because you hunt to eat. So if we don't place candidates, we don't pay our mortgage, we don't go grocery shopping, right?
I like that.
You hunt to eat. So you need to find people who are willing to be on the phone, be on video calls, really for 7-8 hours a day, right? Like, and be very comfortable in that environment, but picking up the phone and making the call. The worst thing that can happen is someone says, no, I'm not interested. But
Yeah.
more often than not, they say, well, tell me more.
Did you have to get comfortable getting on the phone, or was that just a natural thing for you?
So one of the jobs I had in college, actually a non-restaurant job, was I actually had a phone sales job
Oh,
for about 3 or 4 months during the summer, just for extra money. I sold light bulbs, and
oh
I would
wow.
literally call up companies to sell light bulbs. And, it was one of those things where you'd get rejected 99 out of 100 times, but you'd go through phone books and you'd be calling places, right?
So wow.
Right. And so, the transition part that was hard was, like I said, sitting at a desk and then not having that face-to-face interaction. That was a challenge. Video helps a lot actually, because you're seeing people talking
Right.
to people. But it's either in you or it's not, right? So what I like when I'm hiring a recruiter, I actually like to hire people who have sales experience, whether that's catering sales, it could be, selling travel, being a past recruiter somewhere, but selling real.
That's
Okay.
quite interesting. I feel like for a recruiter, you definitely have to have that sales hunting. Like you said, you gotta hunt for it. You have to want it.
And it's one of the toughest sales jobs probably on earth because you're selling a human being to another human being. And either human being can say no. You're a matchmaker. So you're matchmaking personalities, you're matchmaking cultures. And if it's not the right fit, one of the parties is going to say no. When you sell a car, the car doesn't get a choice in the decision, right? Only the buyer gets the choice.
Quite interesting. I haven't thought about it like that. Thought about it as like a matchmaker, but not like selling a car. That's a good reference. I like it. Hi.
It is.
Yes.
One of the great things about being a recruiter in the hospitality industry is, I may talk to someone today for 15, 20 minutes and I don't have anything for them, but I will.
Huh.
Right. And
Yeah.
so, I remember our conversations and, maybe 3 months, 6 months, 2 years down the road, we talk again. And now we're adding on to our last conversation. And now I have something for you. And I remembered that we talked about what you were looking for.
How do you remember each and every person and what they're looking for?
So we call it an ATS, a tracking system. And every time I talk to someone, I put in the ATS a profile on that person. And so I have their resume, my notes on them, what makes them tick, what they're looking for financially, what they're looking for in terms of quality of life. I interview a lot of people and everyone always says, I say, oh, what are you looking for? Quality of life. And my next question is, what does that look like to you? Because some people's quality of life is Monday through Friday, 9 to 5.
It looks different on everyone.
Right. Some people it's, hey, I only want to work nights because my wife works during the day and we don't want to pay for childcare. And so during the day, I'm going to take care of my kids and I'll work at night. It just varies for everybody. Some people love working weekends because they love working when it's really busy. And they want Mondays and Tuesdays off because it's slow and they don't want to be in a restaurant when it's slow.
Yeah.
But it's always different.
Right. That's great. Are you ready for some rapid fire? All right. Are you an early bird or a night owl?
Early bird.
Table service or buffet?
Table service.
Pizza or tacos?
Yes.
Yes to both.
I love both. Yeah.
They are good. They are really
Oh my
good.
gosh.
Early check-in or late check-out?
Early check-ins.
Yeah, I agree with that. What's the best part about being in the hospitality industry?
I think just talking to people.
I know, I love it.
Yeah, I mean, just interacting with people, talking to people, that's the best.
It's good to know everyone's story.
It is.
Thank you for sharing and coming on today. Really
thanks for having
appreciate
me.
your time.
Sure.